In January 2020, the Australian Armour and Artillery Museum was offered a project like no other. It was a parts package of a StuG III G wreck, newly recovered from a swamp in Latvia, about 120 kilometres west of Riga. The serial number for the vehicle had corroded away long ago, but the location it was found in and the model of StuG it was indicated that it took part in the brutal late war campaign known as the Battle for Courland, or the Courland Pocket. Beyond that, we knew very little about our newest edition when it arrived in September 2020. What really sets this project apart is that everything you see here is from the one original vehicle. But the sheer amount of damage and degradation will make this restoration the most difficult one we've ever attempted. What's more, this is going to be a running vehicle, which is going to demand every part of the driveline and suspension be in near perfect condition. Bo couldn't have known at the time that this restoration was not going to be just a battle against blown up and twisted parts of armour, but against himself. It was through sheer force of will that he at last completed what would turn out to be a nearly impossible project, spanning several long and challenging years. This film won't go into every detail of the restoration. That's what the Workshop Wednesdays are for. Rather, this is a film about the journey through those years and what it took for Bo, with the help of the rest of the workshop crew, to restore into running condition our 1945 Alket StuG III G. As always, it starts with tearing down the hull and floor back to bare plates.
Did it!
Over the years, we've received a lot of parts from destroyed and blown up vehicles, so working with materials like this is nothing new really. The difference is, we aren't just cutting out the parts we need for a mostly intact project. We need to preserve as much of this as possible. What's more, it has to be made drivable, and that demands a lot more careful work when it comes to aligning the hull and the floor plates. After starting the project, it became apparent to us that there were no signs of any impacts from artillery or anti-tank fire. All of the parts had been broken up from a massive internal explosion, which appeared to be concentrated in the area of the commander's seat. The blast had broken the mild steel welds that held the hull together and was particularly devastating wherever ammunition was stored. We also noticed long fractures starting at the top of the wheel station holes. Despite the damage, Bo and his dad Glenn, with fire, pressure and weld, forced this weary veteran back into square.
A bit hard this one because it actually split in half. It was too big to put in the press, so we just cut it off where the bends sort of started and then straightened it as best as we could. Now we're just rejoining it back on again. We're going to put these strong backs on and then pull it in, see if we can get some more of that twist out when we weld it. So we got it pretty good compared to what it used to be. It's still not perfect, but we'll be able to pull that in when we put our superstructure and all the rear plates on. It's really good for the condition of the plate, like what it used to be. So this is actually really good. No, I reckon that's good enough.
Unlike Panzer IIs and Panzer IVs that have externally mounted leaf spring suspension units, StuG IIIs use a torsion bar suspension system. This works by running long steel bars across the hull. Each wheel's swing arm twists its bar under load, and the bar's resistance acts as the suspension. It gives each wheel independent movement and provides a smoother, more durable ride with fewer exposed parts to damage. Since a lot of the floor is missing, the rest of the housings for the torsion bars are also not present in the parts package that we received. At this stage, we were searching high and low for replacement ones in good, usable condition. This was the only plate of the floor that could be recovered from the marsh. So using measurements from the plate that we had, Bo was able to draw up what we had missing and have it cut by our steel supplier. We were pulling parts out of the pile and assembling them like crazy. Progress was great. The bits we were working on looked bad, but they freed up easily, Hardly anything needed to be sacrificed and destroyed to keep our progress going.
We're pretty lucky with this plate. We don't have to do much to it. Just going to put it in place and just tack it for now so we can move straight onto the superstructure. The actual superstructure's got one half missing off of it. We've got it, but it's been blown off, so we just have to add that back to it. Plus we've got to put our angles down the side so we can bolt it on. It's pretty straightforward, really. We're pretty lucky.
It was when we got the superstructure in that things started to really hit home for us. Almost 80 years ago, it was very likely that a scared, hungry, and exhausted young man or youth sat peering through this very driver's vision block on the left-hand side. On this side of the StuG is stored most of its ammunition, and you can see how the explosion has peeled the steel apart. The fighting compartment was welded with what appears to be mild steel, with occasional runs of stainless over the top of cracks, which frequently occur when welding up armoured plate.
Sounds like a big bell.
Beneath the forward left section of the engine deck was a rack of ammo stowage. You can see how the remaining rounds inside must have exploded and caused the top to burst off along the weld seam. The damage here was pretty significant. Imagine the force needed to bend 12mm flat bar this way, but nothing Glenn and Bo couldn't handle. Hull and fighting compartment went together without a hitch. It was hard work, but not overly technical, and progress seemed really fast because of the visual impact these big plates had fully assembled. Morale was high, insanely optimistic completion dates were being floated, but the restoration had only just begun. Normally we commence a project with a solid plan in mind, but this one was different. The previous year, Bo had finished the Tiger One earlier than expected, so he moved on to the StuG before we were quite ready. We had just about all the parts we could want from a single wreck, but we didn't have a final plan for the driveline. That's the gearbox, differential, and final drives. We could fix up the final drives pretty easily, but the gearbox, that was another story. And to source a new one in safe working order? Forget it. So while a plan for the driveline was being made, Bo made a start on the rear idlers and return rollers, which would need to be done anyway. This rear idler and track tensioning unit is badly mangled from the explosion. It would be much easier just to make a new one, but all of these parts are from the same wreck, and we felt duty bound to do our absolute best to salvage, preserve, and repair as much as possible before resorting to new fabrication.
We can only move it about 8mm or so either way, and then it just binds up again. And we've tried a big bar on it, we've tried heat, we've tried a lot of different things to try and get this to move, but the shaft is actually kinked inside, jamming internally. We can't free that up. So the only way to actually get this off is to cut through the cast out of there. It's twisted and bent anyway, that piece. So, I mean, we might be able to use it, but it's in pretty bad condition. That's caused us the trouble because inside this, it's had a room to move and it's kinked it inside.
I would have thought the rest of the unit was a write-off as well, but that's why I just hold the camera.
Right, so this is the rear track tensioning idler wheel swing arm, I guess. We thought that it was going to be simple and that this collar was just welded to the hull, but turns out nothing they did was simple. And so you've got these two collars that hold the swing arm onto this piece. This pipe then goes through the hull wall, and then it's got steel seats that sit onto a frame inside the actual tank. And then you've got a thread which locks it in. So the thread stops the whole shaft from being able to pull out. So it's a really complicated design. They could have made it a lot simpler.
It's a really complicated design. They could have made it a lot simpler. One of the most used phrases during this project. Without a doubt, German military vehicles are built like sports cars. They were on the cutting edge of mechanical engineering technology. But wherever there was a moving part, we shook our heads in disbelief. For this one rear idler unit, it took Glenn and Beau 3 weeks to get it fixed up and mounted on the vehicle. Needless to say, some parts, like this thread cover, couldn't be saved. We didn't know it yet, but the part Beau began working on next led us to discover just how unique and rare our StuG III G was.
These are the return roller wheels. This is the late one. This is actually what came off this StuG III. This is the early one here. The early ones had bearings and the late ones didn't. It's got 2 bearings in it. So ball bearing factories were bombed, so they probably just thought, well, this is good enough for how long the vehicle's going to last. We don't really need bearings. And look how good it spins just for metal on metal. You know what I mean? Like there is no bearing in that at all. I think we've got enough shafts that we can use, but we don't have enough wheels. So we've got to make them. We can't go welding anything on yet until we actually press this piece, the center in, because they're actually tapered, they're not straight, and that's, I guess, for the guide horn on the track to go through. After we press that, we can then apply the outer ring and then start putting all the gussets on inside. This is the hub of the return roller. What he's done here is copied the dimensions exactly of an original hub that we had. So we're going to tack it on and then spin it, see if the wheel spins true.
Two factories made StuG IIIs, Alket and Miag. Ours was an Alket-made StuG, which from this period are usually thought to have return rollers that look like this. At first, we thought it was fitted with Miag return rollers, as at first glance they looked very similar. But as we looked closer, we found significant differences, mainly in the depth and width of the gussets. Beau kept in constant communication with StuG experts Adam Mann and Evan McCallum throughout the build. Their conclusion was that this type of return roller made our StuG a very late war model, possibly final production, and one of the last ever to roll out of the Alket factory. Incredibly, this would also mean it somehow made its way by sea to the cut-off German forces holding out in the Kurland pocket. Its service with the German army could not have been more than a few months before it was destroyed. This amazing discovery invigorated us, and enthusiasm for the project reached an all-time high, until Beau decided to move on to the drivetrain.
This is the StuG III original transmission. As you can probably tell, it's not much good anymore. Unfortunately, we don't have a replacement one. We do have a Panzer IV one, but then again, that needs a lot of work as well, and it doesn't just match up to this. We're just going to use a different engine and gearbox, and we need this gear here to be able to drive into our diff housing. If this gear is not usable, I don't know what we're going to do. Inside here we've got 2 bolts that are holding a locking washer on. They're tied together with wire to stop each bolt turning. So we've got to take those off, and then we should be able to undo this locking nut here. Pretty good, you can undo it by hand. That's that. So we should be able to lever this gear off now. The inner of the bearing is actually sticking to it and not allowing it to come out. It's so badly corroded inside So we're gonna have to start cutting this bearing apart and trying to maybe get it out with the inner still stuck to it. So we've tried heating the inner of the bearing up. It's still not moving, so we're just going to cut through the inner of the bearing a bit without trying to cut into the shaft beneath it.
You can really see Beau's trepidation here. We don't like cutting into and destroying this sort of thing, even if it's unusable. But at this stage, the output gear was critical to our plans to make this vehicle running.
Is it moving? Don't think so.
There should be nothing else holding that on. We took the locking nut off the outside and we should have been able to remove that gear off the internal spline, but it just must be seized solid. Yeah, I have no idea. We have no idea. So we spent all last week trying to get this gear off of the transmission. We need this helical gear to be able to line up with the helical gear that's inside the diff that we're going to be using.
All Beau's efforts led to the gear being cut off anyway. Our plan shifted to sending it to the machine shop to be copied and adapted to a modern transmission so that it would mesh into the differential, which appeared to be in much better condition than the transmission. But if the differential wasn't usable...
Good condition.
It's beautiful. It's really nice in there.
Well, we didn't want to have to think about that unless we really had to.
I'm just going to over here and cry.
Oh man.
As you can see, the bearing's buggered anyway. Can you see the movement?
Yes. Oh my god. It's in pretty good nick.
Yeah, it is actually, if you don't look at it.
Obviously, I had no idea what I was looking at. We soaked the unit in oxalic acid, which dissolved the rust and tinted everything a weird green colour. But it couldn't undo the damage of over 75 years worth of corrosion.
Oh man. Oh my god.
There it is.
Yeah, about the same as the other one. Not the best.
This was a real setback. Our whole plan revolved around being able to use at least the differential, but the whole thing is toast. We tried ordering a whole new set of gears from Panzerfarm in Poland, But what we didn't realise was the actual housing was distorted and the gears wouldn't spin freely. We toyed with the idea of using an FV432 steering box, but it would have had a lot of trouble fitting, and there would be little to no reduction from the steering box to the final drives, which would make steering really difficult. We'd come too far to simply make this a static vehicle, so while the director of the museum searched for a solution to our drivetrain problem, Bo and his older brother Ryan, who used to work with us, kept pushing on. This final drive housing was one of the first things we pulled apart back at the start of the restoration. The replacement differential parts didn't work for us, but the replacement shafts and bearings for these drive units did work perfectly. After working with the wreckage of the transmission and differential, this part was a breeze.
This is the same housing. That's smashed off because the hull blew apart, and that side of the hull actually ripped off, and it pulled the gear off inside.
Get the drift on here. I just don't want to let it drop.
That's it.
Yeah, it feels good. Retaining plate for the bearing inner. There, like so. Yep. Lock washer, that'll drop into there. Stop that turning. Everywhere. You got it?
No.
This would have been what they used in the factory.
You reckon?
3 bonds, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you joking?
Yeah, I'm choking.
Oh my god.
Just go up a bit. That's it.
This initially felt like a win, but when we stepped back and looked at it,
The hull sides were blown up, and it's blown the center out of this here, and it's created a bulge. Whereas the other side, it sweeps right in and under, because the plate's actually curved from top to bottom. So we've got to cut all those rivets out and then cut the weld off, and remove that plate. We've made some new ones up. That way we can get them pretty square to the other side at least, you know, without any distortion in that plate, and we'll have to just pack it where it's not touching the body.
the driver's side was so badly bent that it needed too much packing, even for the mounting plate. The only way to straighten it out was with LPG and a sledgehammer.
It looks straight.
Dead straight.
Good, eh?
Dry already. Yeah. Pretty good, eh?
Yeah, that'll be rivet.
That's 2.5 on the beam at the top and down the bottom. Yeah, 2.5. So went flat.
So far we have the hull, superstructure, engine decks, idlers, return rollers, and final drives in. We were let down by the transmission and differential, but this would be nothing compared to what comes next. And it was now that Bose started work on the suspension. It would take him the next 1.5 years to get it finished. It would have taken even longer if we didn't receive yet another timely shipment from our mates at Panzer Farm.
So what have we got here, Bo?
Torsion bar holders.
There they are.
Right, so you've got a shaft through here, and then you've got a swing arm that comes out, and then you have a stub axle on it that connects to the road wheel. And inside here would have been a torsion bar pushed through.
That's a torsion bar in there.
Yeah, this is a torsion bar here.
How are we going to get that one out?
Oh, there's a hole on the other side you can hit them through.
These are original housings and were probably sourced from many different vehicles all over Europe, but all of them have one thing in common. rust. A torsion bar's spline locks into the housing with tight, precise teeth. So when rust forms between them, it expands and grips like cement, welding the bar in place. Not only that, but the way these housings were removed from their old vehicle have caused them to be really badly damaged, and they're going to need a lot of repairs and work before they're ready to be fitted to our hull.
That's one way of capping a thread.
We might find the other ones will come out a lot easier, but let's see how we go.
It took Glenn and Beau from October to January to fix up every single torsion bar housing.
They're off a vehicle that's been blown up, so they're not perfect, and there is a lot of damage to them. That slows us down a bit. Inside you've got a bush, and this is a lock for the bush to stop it sliding back out again. Grease point here. Then you've got your torsion bar spline block, and what we have to do is take the old bushing out, take the old seal out, and fix up any broken pieces, take any old screws out, re-tap holes. We've got to do that 12 times over.
To each one?
To each one.
Here we found that even when this vehicle was made at the Alket factory, it was impossible to perfectly align the floor and the hull without some adjustments.
These are all shims to align the other torsion bar up to this side, basically. So what that would have done is just lifted the spline up slightly. Some of them have nothing at all, and some, have this or even double that. You still get distortion, from welding it. Could even be up to 10 mil, even more from one side to the other. I think we just leave this one now until we've got a swing arm ready to go to test them.
Do we have a good swing arm?
We've got one that's okay. Oh, the bearings are still good.
Still good?
Off the throttles, look.
We'll just blast it and stick it straight in.
Straight on,
Yeah.
So this piece here is just a cap. So you take this off, and inside is actually a nut. And torsion bar's got a thread on the end of it, and they do the nut up. That holds the torsion bar in and holds the swing arm onto the torsion bar, stops it coming out. We might take the wheel off first to make it a bit easier for us to pull the rest off this side. I reckon they're just gonna undo.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Wait, did it go?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
Look.
Germans,
yeah, because they put grease on their bolts when they put them in. Okay. Yeah. Got him. Another one. We just got the nut off, and now what we have to do is take this locking washer off. Once that's off, we can remove this bushing inner. Oh.
Not playing well.
Not yet, it will. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh man, it's recessed and everything.
Yeah, see that?
Jeez.
Doesn't smell good. Whatever it is. Oh, look out. We're on
Oh!
a roll here, Curtis.
Hey, we might actually get that bush out.
That's it. Look at all that gold dust falling out of there.
Yeah.
So this is flat, and this tapers down to a bigger size. And where the taper finishes, it's got a shoulder. And that's what that sits on.
We were wondering what was making this bush so hard to remove until...
What is that?
So it's not a bush. They're all the needle rollers. I didn't expect it to be that at all, to be honest.
Grab it. Ah! Oh no!
What a mess.
Yes. Oh man. So it was a bearing after all, with all these little needles.
This process, along with some significant repairs and cleaning, had to be done for every single swing arm we had for the project. Not only that, but after we learned about all of the different essential components we needed, we experienced significant delays in part shipments from overseas. Even the road wheels we had were in a sad state and needed a lot of work and refurbishment.
So we've got 14 wheels, we only need 12. They will be usable, but they're still pretty sad. They're stiffeners. Some of them are rusted away. We've got to grind the surface down, grind the weld off on both sides, and then we can hit it through. And then replace the pipe with a new piece. Now we're going to get onto cleaning up the threads for this cap to go on. And that just stops any stuff getting into the bearings. It seals it. The part where the labyrinth seal runs in, they've been caked full of mud and rocks and all sorts of things. So this is supposed to go in there. Still a few things to do, but we're going to wait for the bearings to get here first so we can test fit them. Yeah.
And that's how you fix a StuG III G wheel?
Yeah, just in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
StuG III's used hydraulic telescopic shock absorbers on the first and last road wheel stations. They worked by forcing oil through interval valves as the suspension moved, converting sudden impacts into smooth, controlled motion.
Teamwork.
Torsion bars alone can twist and spring back quite violently. The shocks stopped the wheels from bouncing, kept the tracks in firm contact with the ground, reduced stress on the hull, and made the vehicle far more controllable, especially at speed or over rough terrain.
Now we'll pull this out. Oh, look at that. Ah, man, oh man. Jump off the ground. So that just then, I think, already did something. What to do? Okay, cool. Thread's perfect. And this is like just a big nut with all this stuff on it. You've got a wiper, so a rubber seal on there to stop the oil coming out where the rod goes through. And that hits down on there. The bottom one goes on there, and the plunger is inside, working like this.
It's August 2023. The swing arms are repaired, and we've received the seals, bushes, screws, and everything else we need to assemble the torsion bars, their housings, and the swing arms. Bo's just using this old broken off torsion bar to triple check that the splines are nice and clean.
Cool, so I think that's going to work.
Needle roller bearings proved to be far too difficult to obtain, and was a little bit of an overkill for the sort of work the vehicle would be doing with us. So we opted for nylon bushes instead.
Oh. Did you film that?
Yeah. Look good?
Yes, it does.
We've come as far as we can with what we have. We're still waiting on new bearings for the wheels, a new swing arm, and a new torsion bar. We considered welding in the torsion bar housings while we wait, but Bo was a little bit worried about putting a lot of heat into the hull and having it distort. To help with this, and to prevent a full suspension mental breakdown, he decided that the gun mount and cradle would be exactly what we needed to stop this from happening. There was just one little problem.
The gun cradle we've got out there, half of it's missing and it's all twisted and been blown up and squashed. We can use pieces of it, but it's warped, and a lot of the welds are completely split, and by the time you flatten the plate again, you're going to be stretching it, throwing your measurements out, and you could spend months just trying to salvage that piece.
It's almost as if the internal explosion caused the gun to forcefully jar to one side, tearing apart half of the piece and squashing the rest of it. Despite its condition, it's been able to provide Bo with invaluable measurements, enabling him to recreate the various parts in CAD so that our steel supplier can provide everything pre-cut perfectly. gun mount complete, torsion bar housings welded in, and remaining suspension components are all present and correct. Time to put it all together.
Not.
Each swing arm has a bump stop to limit how far the arm can travel, preventing the torsion bars from over twisting and the hull from taking hard impacts. Some of these bump stops also form part of the guide system for the swing arms. The guides stop each swing arm from drifting sideways and damaging the wheels or track.
This piece rotates inside.
And it should have rubber under
It
there.
have rubber under here, which would bottom out on top of the swing arm. Only if it really went over something rough at a high speed. If there were to be any twisting in the swing arm at all, this system here would stop that. This is actually one that came from this vehicle. This one is from a different vehicle. This measures 25 mil. This one measures about 15. The guide fits nicely on this one. It's got a little bit of play, like it should. And then you try and put that guide on here. There is no way that is going to work. So that led me to believe that they had deleted this part altogether on the back of the middle 4 swing arms. And they had.
Oh.
They had. The back of 2 of our swing arms, there are actually no bolt holes in it at all. So there's no way for this piece to actually attach to the back. These holes just weren't existent.
But it still had these on it.
It still has these parts here. Somewhere along the way, we believe maybe late 1944, they actually just made the vehicle a lot simpler, a lot easier to produce. And they stopped machining these and they got rid of the other block that runs over them. But it still serves as a bump stop.
Yet another rare and unique example of the final run of StuG III Gs. In a manufacturing and engineering culture so resistant to economy and simplification, this was a really interesting find and caused even more debate in the German armour community. Bo applied the base coat of chocolate brown to the hull. He did this before we took the stands out, as everything was much easier to access while the wheels had no weight on them and were lower to the ground.
Late Alcat and Miag vehicles were painted very dark, so their base coat wasn't actually Dunkelgelb, it was red brown or chocolate brown. Looking at Fort Benning's StuG, for example, the StuG III G, it's painted with chocolate brown. Most of the vehicle is painted that colour. So that's what we're going for here because it's period correct. The idea behind painting the hull side is so that we don't have to paint behind tracks and wheels when we fit the tracks later on. So we've got to lower the vehicle down. We want to test torsion bars, see what the wheels do, see how everything goes.
Hey, so it's down.
That's down, yeah.
No snapping.
No snapping, no creaking. It's good. Torsion bars seem to be working well. Looks very good so far.
So far, so good.
So far, so good, yeah.
It's hard to overstate just how big a moment this was, but just a few days later we received a delivery that quite literally saved the restoration. 2 StuG III transmission units. Well, this model of transmission could have been used in anything with the same chassis, but the point is we actually got them. Having the transmission is critical, but to have it paired with its original differential as well is a huge deal. It means they're shimmed perfectly to mesh together. The only thing now is, what's the condition like on the inside? This was not a promising sight. We were hoping that this wasn't 80-year-old water that might have turned the internal gears into rusty sludge, but water from the cleaning process from when it was imported just a few days ago. Only one way to find out.
Have a look inside the diff. Yeah, I guess so. Alright, why not? Why not?
Where'd you find that hammer?
I'm too embarrassed to show this hammer to you guys.
Do you like this?
Some jobs require precision, alright?
Yeah.
Steve joined the museum crew in 2023, taking over from Ryan. He had an Oz Armour Fest under his belt, but this was going to be his first taste of World War II German mechanical engineering.
Looks like a brisket.
Oh, it does too.
Well, so far it doesn't seem like there's any metallic bits in it, which is good. Oh, look at that. There's movement. How good is that? Oh, well, this is obviously the access plate for all the selector mechanisms. I don't see any real nasty evidence of water ingress. We can see a line of the fluid here, but this is the oil, and over time it's the oil has just degraded down into a sludge. But it's promising, looks good. So far, I haven't seen anything that's been a real showstopper, but as much as I'd like to keep it together, we'll probably have to take it apart a bit more. Yeah, I don't know how many living experts there are on this particular transmission set.
Lucky for us, we had two such experts arrive just in time.
Last time you pulled apart one of these?
20 years ago.
20 years?
20 years ago.
Combat dealers Nick and Phil.
What's the biggest challenge pulling these apart?
Keeping clean. Everything's heavy. You've got to be so careful not to undo anything that makes the whole thing unbalanced.
Nick and Phil make an annual pilgrimage to Australia to help with Oz Armour Fest and the Panther that they restored for us. The gearbox was quite intimidating as they're exceedingly rare and everything on them is basically irreplaceable. But their knowledge and confidence in working with parts like this really help put our minds at ease.
To be able to split it, you need to take the diff off. So we'll take this off now and we can get more access to the side.
Already, things are looking much better than what they were before, but we're wary of getting our hopes up too much, even at this promising stage. To my complete and utter horror, I missed the money shot.
I missed it. Just put it back up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
On the bright side, the condition of the gears and clutch packs appear impeccable. Everything is badly gummed up with ancient grease and oil, and we can't risk using old bearings, so the main and counter shafts are stripped down for careful inspection and cleaning.
Is it? Yep. The tattoo artist.
Yeah. Hey!
What was so striking about this process was the machine work at a time before computer-aided design and manufacturing. The tolerances here are just so fine.
Oh, that's it.
Cracked it.
How's that?
With everything in the gearbox apart, we could turn our attention to the differential. Beau's previous experience definitely came in handy, and it meant we weren't flying in as blind as we were the first time, or as we were with a lot of items during this build.
Good luck to you, Steve.
I'll end up spinning around on my axis. Look at that.
Load bearing anyway. And this is just a spacer. Can't forget this.
It's only a little bit mangled. But the adhesive's still got stretch in it.
Oh, there we go.
Sweet. It's a bit rusty, but...
The gear on top isn't in the best condition. It's clear that it hasn't had any oil on it for a very long time, but everything else is looking promising. Basically the same story.
Yep.
The top gear could be better, but the rest of it looking not too bad.
Alright. Nice work.
That's facing out.
Oh, easy.
Oh yeah, that's moving.
Moved about 800 mil.
Yes.
See? Ready?
Yep.
Okay, that's it. Yep.
Woo!
When you compare what we were working with 2 years ago, well, there is no comparison. There's still a lot of work to do to get this project complete, but the path ahead is clear. We have the transmission, we have the differential, but what are we going to use to power this project?
This is a Caterpillar 3208 V8 diesel engine, naturally aspirated. It's about 185 to 200 horsepower, but you're looking at about 650 newton meters of torque. So we know that this isn't the right engine for the vehicle. Torque figures are very close to the HL120. The HL120 TRM, I think they were around the 600, 620 newton meter mark. We're more than happy with the power that this engine's going to put out. So this radiator was made for our Sherman Firefly. It was still having overheating issues after this one was fitted. We're going to sort something else out for that, but we're going to use it in this vehicle here because it's a perfect size. I handmade a shroud for the radiator from one piece of 3mm aluminium, and then we've rolled this ring here in our sheet metal roller, which is pretty difficult to do. For the bottom, we've actually made a shroud up to direct the air upwards. It's just a shame that it's not an actual original Maybach for it. We won't have the correct noise coming from the engine, but we've sorted something out so we can get it as loud as possible. This is the original muffler that came with this vehicle. Inside we've got a series of tubes which actually act as the muffler, and it would also act as like a baffle so that you don't get backfiring flames and all that sort of thing coming out of your exhaust. It's full of holes, it's cracked along the weld seam. Not to say that it wouldn't be fixable, but as you can hear, it's full of rust. This is the backside, it's completely rusted through. So we've got to make 2 new ones. And that's it. Externally they're exactly the same, but internally it's completely different. There's just a straight through pipe which runs right through the center and comes out the end, so it won't actually muffle any noise.
So it won't have that same throaty petrol burble like an original HL120, but it will still sound pretty good. Meanwhile, Steve was in the other shed, cleaning up the gears and shafts and working on the lubrication system.
Okay, when we dug this out of the transmission, it was encased in a great big glob of snot, so we've had to clean it all out, check it, and it's in remarkably good condition. It all looks good. There we go, just goes in. So that's 2.5 thou, or 0.64 of a millimetre. So that's an incredibly fine tolerance. Hardened steel gears running in a soft cast iron housing. So we're going to make sure there's enough oil in there that when we first run it up that it's not going to seize up. Making sure we get the witness marks correctly lined up. Give this a good wriggle and jiggle. Inside this machine bore fits a little ball bearing, on top of which goes a spring, retaining sleeve, and then a specially machined locking pin that fits into the back of the spring, which holds it into place and also self-locks itself in there so it doesn't fall out. Clever, elegant and complicated at the same time. End plate on the right way. M8 bolt, do it to about 15 Newton meters. Next thing I'm going to do is put a bit of load on the system to see what sort of pump pressure it can develop. Oh, here how the drill's really biting. So what's that? That's 45 psi of oil pressure. Wow, that's I'm impressed. Yeah, I don't think we've got a flow issue. So here we go. So that's under full load, so there it is, bypassing oil and controlling the oil pressure. Pretty neat, huh? Well, I'm going to call that a bit of success. Got to hand it to the engineers and people that constructed this back in the day, that's for sure.
The steering brakes was something Beau had been working on in between jobs since the start of the build, but it was only now we received everything we needed to get them finished and mounted up.
So these weren't in the best condition. Everything was seized and caked with like mud and dirt. All the springs had corroded through. Everything needed to be pulled apart and recreated. We're very fortunate to have the housing and the brake shoes still. We've actually got the brake drums. At the moment they're being relined and machined. The brake pads were sitting on the brake drum and they had corroded into it, which would have given us terrible braking. These springs here, we only just found out that we had them. They're a special type of spring. They're not just something that we can go and buy off the shelf. They have been specially made for these braking units. And these are made copying original springs from a StuG III brake housing. It also has a built-in exhaust system. You've got holes which feed into a channel inside this housing. And once the brakes start wearing, the dust is being created, it gets sucked through these holes and then it goes through another hole in the brake housing, and in the back of this is a cavity and it all gets pulled out of this exhaust outlet here. The actual drive flange on the back of the transmission has a fan on it spinning with the engine, so it pulls the air out through the piping and then it gets rid of it out through the engine bay, down the drive shaft tunnel. That's pretty much it. There. Pull the top in. All the way. That's it. That sounds nice. No hard spots. It's good, it means the gears are meshing well. Like I'm not putting much pressure on that at all.
Just before Christmas of 2024, it was time to at last reassemble the transmission and differential.
It's been months since we pulled this thing apart. A lot of patience, probably about 25 litres of kerosene. Every single bearing in the transmission needed to be replaced. We're pretty happy it's pristine as it can be.
This is an oil manifold. It's where the oil travels through to get oil to the top part of the transmission.
85-year-old piece of rubber that's still soft and as squishy as the day it was made,
Yep.
but you've also got to have a custom-made little washer on it as well too.
Heading down. That's the way.
Just like that, eh?
Righto.
There you go. Careful with that. Look at that.
That was it.
Like that. Alright.
That's it.
Well, that X has to go to there. Yeah.
Gear alignments are great. Things turning properly. It's free. That's really good.
Yep.
So, line it up on the top there and there. Reverse. Reverse lockout comes back in. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear. And it's a wonderfully mechanical operation.
Such a big moment. That tight mechanical clunk is one of the most satisfying sounds I think I've ever heard, but there was still heaps more to do. All of the parts we needed for the differential were ready for assembly. One of the main things holding us up was getting a hold of this protective enamel paint. There are hundreds of parts that have to go back together in a really specific order, and we've spent a small fortune on new bearings, so the stakes for getting this right are really high.
1, 2, 3.
Steve has rebuilt most of the sub-assemblies already, but we still have the most important job to do: aligning the differential with the gearbox and ensuring that the two gears have a near perfect mesh.
The pattern is a little bit too high, so it needs to go down just a fraction in towards the bottom of the pinion. We're sort of probably 80% of the way there, 85% of the way there.
To properly align these two gears, you basically have to assemble the whole unit. Now, this would be a really arduous process, as everything has to be done multiple times to get it right. But Steve had a really clever idea to make two fixtures that held everything in place, which meant we only had to assemble the unit completely once, at the very end when we were ready for it all to go back together for the last time.
Get this in.
Oh, the adjustable spanner.
Let's see.
Look out for that in the comments.
That feels like it's pretty close. Yeah, we're not far off. Oh, that's snapped in. Look at that. Hey! Alright, that's probably about as far as we'll go.
As Steve put the finishing adjustments onto the unit, Bo was doing the same for the steering and braking system in the hull.
So we've got our brake drums back from the machine shop in town.
How would they have done this?
just machine a slight amount off first, and then you've got to rebuild the surface up, and then you can machine that material off and take it back to its original size, which is what they've done here, and they've done a really good job. So they're called epicyclic hubs. One rotation of the sprocket will spin this 4 times. These are our locking washers. So 2 different types here. The one that's shaped like this actually locks into the locating dowel. You can actually see where the old washer's been, where the pitting is around it. What's left on the brakes is just the adjustment, then doing over the tab washers and that sort of stuff, greasing up any grease points. But yeah, leakages in behind, they're pretty much all done. You just need to wrap the split pins over them. But apart from that, it's just adjustment on the brakes and then they're done.
At long last, it was time for the refurbished hull to receive its refurbished gearbox.
Alright, ready? Yep. Just pull it back to you a little bit. We're getting close. Getting close. There's loads of clearance between this and the filler.
What is it?
Oh, you're like at full throttle all the time, every day.
Done. Lucky.
Lucky you saw that, Stephen.
Lasted 80 years till us monkeys go put in the transmission and they go.
Yeah.
This looks so cool.
From here on out, it would only become cooler and cooler.
So this is the steering linkage assembly. So this part here connects directly to the left-hand steering tiller. And the side that I missed the paint is facing up, of course. Thankfully we've got just enough room to get that in when we split this universal joint off the differential. The top cap of the front differential mount, it's got a scallop in it for the steering linkage to run past. All the earlier type differential mounts like this, they never had any cutout in them because they had hydraulic steering, so there was no manual levers running past here. That's it. Well, they originally had castellated nuts, right? But the ones we've got are 10 mil too long. So they've either got to be machined down or our next option is to use nylock nuts. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be going with nylock nuts and a little touch of red Loctite on there. Doing up castellated nuts on this? No, thank you.
While Beau fought a private war with the steering system, Steve started wiring everything up.
So I've just done some temporary connections here to enable us to start the engine, ignition. Warning lights on for oil pressure because the engine's not running. Warning lights on that the alternator's not charging because it's not running either. So now we'll crank the engine and see if it'll start. 2, 3. Something I changed from before is stopping me from turning the engine off.
Ah, hey, but sounds good.
It sounds good, so got a little bit of troubleshooting.
At this point, we were mere hours away from putting all of our hard work to the ultimate test.
So now what we need to do is fit the tail shaft and everything else around it, and then we can drop the gun cradle back in and bolt that up for the last time, and then we can start assembling our interior and adjusting brakes and things like that. It's going to be a little bit fiddly, but we'll get it done. That's it.
Yep.
Start it up.
So this fan is what extracts the brake dust.
Yeah, it extracts brake dust and it cools the brakes at the same time. Alright.
Tail shaft is in, gun cradle is in, floor plates are in. Let's see what happens when we fire her up.
Is that for Beau's heart rate?
To make me look smarter than what I actually am.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'll have a go at working some of the gears. Swap position.
So this sort of noise we weren't expecting, and it took us a while to figure out what exactly it was. It turned out that the fins of the extraction fan mounted on the back of the transmission, which was made by a supplier in Europe, were just a little bit too big for the housing. Once the engine revved to a certain frequency, the blades would flex by a minuscule amount, and this caused it to score and interfere with the housing, and made that nasty squeaking sound you can hear. But before we could figure this out, they actually wore themselves away and the noise eventually stopped. I'd be lying if I said we weren't disappointed and a little bit worried. For the restoration to have come this far, only to have the gearbox and tail shaft make such horrible noises on its first startup was not encouraging, to say the least. The boys made some minor adjustments to the linkages, and Beau moved on to painting. The interior of this vehicle is painted cream white. This has a colour code of RAL 9001. RAL is a European colour management system started by Germany in the 1920s and is still in use by paint makers to this day, so it's easy for us to get the exact colour made at our local paint shop.
So what bits are you hoping to do today?
I'm hoping to get everything done, would be nice. But main things are the inside of the superstructure, cupola, the superstructure roof, and then the crew heating pipes and other accessories. Almost there. There's a few more bits of tape to take off, and then basically we can start to assemble it. We've adjusted the brakes so they're steering, but we haven't tested it under load yet. But we can still get access to them, to the brakes later on if we need to, through the front hatches. So there's a big difference between just testing it with just the sprocket turning and actually having the track on. I don't want to test the vehicle without its main support on the top, which is the superstructure and this plate here.
It's a little bit risky to do it this way. The first time we test it under load will be when the vehicle is totally assembled and painted, so if anything goes wrong, we'll have to pull it all apart again. Beau decides to put on the superstructure next. We've had this thing on and off a few times, and it's a really tricky operation. Hopefully we won't ever be doing this again. This is another ammo stowage rack that Panzerfarm made for us, along with the others that have already been fitted. The ammo in the original is what blew off the corner of the rear deck that we showed you at the start of the film.
There you go.
Yep. Got those bolts in yet? What's next?
Engine deck.
Engine deck.
Yeah. One. Well, the front plate's in, superstructure's in, the engine deck's in, meaning they're all bolted down firm. I went around with sealant, made sure that I put sealant between where the hull and the superstructure and engine deck and all of that meet. Now it's basically time to start fitting out the interior detail.
This front mudguard has to be fitted first, as the bolts that hold it can't be accessed when the final ammo stowage rack is fitted. Now the internal ammo box can go in.
I think we might put the radios in and then the MP40s. Let's do the crew heating pipe first.
We weren't ever going to make a working crew heating system in far north Queensland, but Bo spent a lot of sleepless nights researching it for recreation.
All these things that took all this time take 5 minutes to put in.
These are replicas from Denix, hey?
Yes, these are not real guns, so don't stress out. You know, the amount of people that are actually going to see inside this thing, as long as they look the part and they haven't got little orange caps on the end, I'm happy. Alright.
Look at that. Nice. Looks good.
Goes around there. We're going to put the electrical boxes in and then the radios can go in as well. That'll be right there, right? Let's get right. Plug that one in there. Our machine guns are in, radios are in, power source boxes are in. Yep. Next thing is the gun. Yeah.
The original gun for this StuG disappeared many years ago, and despite our best efforts, we were unable to track down where it ended up for us to acquire it. But by a stroke of luck, we had in our storage shed a very complete 7.5cm L48 with the correct muzzle brake and everything. One day, maybe the original gun's owner will see this film and get in touch with us, but until then, this one will have to do.
Oh no, my fingers. Oh, I'm right. I'm good. I'm good. I've done this about 6 times.
Like I said earlier, apart from the 2 front panels, Bo had to hand make all of the other mudguard components. This took a lot of careful research, but I think you'll agree he's done a magnificent job.
Originally castellated nuts.
Oh, you want to put castellated nuts on?
No, I don't.
At this point, you'd probably forgive Bo for contemplating some harmless corner cutting, but he'd never forgive himself. Castellated nuts it is.
That's it?
I have to remove that.
The light?
Yeah.
Ah.
How's that for precision, eh?
This is an original light that Steve has rewired, and I believe he's replaced the bulb with an LED. Fun fact, the mount is made of Bakelite, and when we took the green cover off, it was really smelly. Before we fitted the roof, we took one final look at the inside from the top down. With a few minutes left in the day, Bo fits a few final pieces. Man, looks warm next to that heating pipe.
Yeah.
But look how the commander's sitting.
Yeah, right behind it. Yeah. He would have been sitting here like this. While this guy in front here was right there between his legs.
I can tell you, being inside this vehicle is cramped, and we are missing a lot of interior pieces like the sight and traverse system. Conditions in armoured fighting vehicles have never been easy for tankers in any army from any period, but sitting there with the ghosts of the past from such a time, and in a vehicle that was completely destroyed, is eerie. Over the next few days, Bo finished his meticulously researched Alket factory camo scheme and prepared to fit some brand new track made by UK-based company CNC Military Engineering.
Oh my god.
Get him out. What are you doing?
It's nice and steady like that. Good.
Ready?
Ready?
Pin. Did pretty clear there, bud. We're going to just move the vehicle back and forwards a couple times inside the shed, and just see what happens. A bit nervous.
What for?
I just hope nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
How broke it? Right.
Get out of there. Quick.
No, it's too much fun. This thing's awesome.
How's it feel?
That's something else. I'm lost for words.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. Controversial shovel. This is it.
This vehicle is a final production Alket StuG III G. We can tell this from the return rollers, rear idler hubcap, the lack of guides on the swing arms, unfinished bump stop guides, and mounts for late war StuG Scherzen. It was destroyed from a catastrophic internal explosion in a forest bog near the Latvian town of Skrunda. That's where our hard evidence ends, and our speculation begins. Built in the final months of the war, this StuG III G was rushed straight from the Alket factory sometime between January and April 1945 onto a barge and shipped to the town of Liepaja, formerly Lobou. During this period, StuGs operating in the area ours was recovered from were part of the 912th Sturmartillerie Battalion, which saw long service on the Eastern Front, and eventually found itself trapped, along with hundreds of thousands of other Germans, in the Courland pocket. Despite its heavy losses, it was redesignated as a brigade and attached to the 18th Army headquarters, and was used as a quick reaction force sent in to repel any Soviet breakthroughs that occurred in the sector. It's highly unlikely this vehicle was manned by experienced troops and would have only served for a short time in the Courland pocket before it broke down, ran out of fuel, or was in danger of falling into enemy hands. The crew had time enough to set telemines for disabling their own vehicle, as they would have been trained to do. For 75 years after the catastrophic explosion that destroyed it, our StuG lay in a swamp near Skrunda, scattered, rusted, silent, reduced to fragments with no witnesses left to tell its story. may never know the names of the men who fought in it or what its final moments truly were. Some secrets will stay buried in the mud where we found them. But the vehicle itself has been given a second life, brought back piece by piece, rebuilt with patience and care, and now it stands as something new. No longer a weapon, but a testament to the work, the skill, and the years that went into its resurrection. From a cold, desperate battlefield in 1945 to a peaceful life in Australia here today, this StuG has found a new home.